Hi, Gerhardt here, looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. This social justice movement is a religion replacing religion. That's Little Monty trying to hide some of the limelight, little French bulldog. It suppresses actual science for the sake of advancing its totalitarian ends. These ideologues continue to place their faith in Marx, but from crude Marxists, they've become enlightened cultural Marxists. Every identity group has been weaponized. Women versus men, gays versus straight, whites versus people of color, except of course Asians, because Asians are white adjacent. Rich versus poor, trans versus cis, the West and its institutions against an impossible utopian illusion. They love Islam, notwithstanding its barbarism, because it's a religion of predominantly people of color. This is all very dangerous and divisive. It is fueling identity-based resentment, hostility, and violence. Leftists absolutely hate Christianity because Christianity absolutely rejects this poisonous ideology, and it's the religion that grounded liberal democratic institutions and ideals. And yes, these liberal ideals and values, human rights foremost and most prominently, are grounded in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And they are poisoning your children with this radical and damaging sex and gender ideology, as well as turning your kids into little racists, judging people on the basis of the color of their skin. And so, as I mentioned, it's a religion replacing ideology, and they follow Karl Marx. And Marx, another term for Marxism was scientific socialism. That's what Marx argued explicitly, scientific socialism. Well, how scientific was this socialism? It wasn't scientific at all. Every prediction Marx ever made was proven false, several times over. Socialist utopias killed 100 million people, their own citizens, in periods of peace, and brought nothing but poverty, despair, and unparalleled corruption and tyranny. Meanwhile, capitalism brought unparalleled wealth and freedom. It lifted billions of people out of poverty, disease, and tyranny. Now, am I confusing socialism with communism? No. As Lenin argued, socialism was the first step towards communism. It actually never got past its first stage, the dictatorship of the proletariat. That's right. The dictatorship of the proletariat was the first stage before realizing the utopian dream. But before that stage could be realized, you needed the dictatorship of the proletariat. Except, of course, it was never the proletariat that held the dictatorship. It was brutal, pampered, corrupt elite party members. And I know some dummy out there is going to say, well, look at these Nordic countries, right? They're examples of progressive socialism, recognizing that none of these countries are socialist. They are free market countries with robust social welfare policies and programs. And it turns out you need a very robust capitalist system to support these social welfare programs, notwithstanding that many of these programs are destined for bankruptcy, and economies across the globe are scratching their heads, wondering how exactly they're going to pay for these welfare benefits. But that's a separate question. A socialist economy is where the government owns the means of production. This is absolute nonsense. This isn't science. Follow the science. The people who are telling you to follow the science, they're the same people who brought you non-binary and men can have babies. Toxic nonsense. You can choose your gender from 90 plus items on the menu. No, you don't get to choose your sex, and you don't choose your gender. Nature decides that for you. You can pretend to be a man and dress in a skirt. I'll pretend you're a woman for all intents and purposes, but you will never be a woman. Nonsense. It's not science. Everybody knows it's not science. Anyways, I do hope you'll check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. It's available on Amazon. Not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues are important. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.